Richmond, north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control. Living in
That is such a valuable piece of advice there.
These are the sorts of things that we should talk about right in the first 5 minutes of the podcast.
Giving people free quotes.
In sunshine and rainbows, it isn't
A thing for just being a solo
The
operator.
change in mindset makes a massive difference.
Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars.
Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars. Today I have got a long-awaited guest, Paul McCasker. Now, Paul, I've been chasing you for ages, and other people have requested I interview you, and I'm talking years ago.
Yeah, right.
So it seems like the timing has lined up well now. So welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars.
Thank you, Gaz. I appreciate it. I do appreciate the opportunity. This is actually my first podcast appearance. So, like, you could call it an exclusive. I would probably just call it this is the first opportunity that's come my way.
Look, we're in the dungeon, so I'm going to call you a virgin.
Done. I'll take it.
So, yes, it is good. It's an exclusive. And I'm expecting big things. So there's a little bit of pressure for you. My listeners will know this already, but just to sort of reinforce the obvious, I like talking to people who have business experience, and that means that people are not just hearing me sprout off what I think will work. And obviously I've learned a few things over the last 4 years podcasting, but I learn a lot more when I talk to people like you. And regardless of where people are at in business, there's always things we can learn from them. Your history is going to be really interesting to cover today, and also to look at what you're doing currently. But why don't we do that? We'll jump back in and talk about your business journey. So let me just clarify for people listening, you've got less grey hair than me, but you're probably getting close to, like, are you 40?
No, mate. There's definitely grey hairs there that they're hiding. My genetics are like half Dutch, so the blonde mixes in with the greys pretty well at the moment. But yes, I am 38. So,
10 years younger than me.
Yeah,
So
there you go.
You've been out of school for 20 years.
Yep.
And when you finished school, what was your journey like? Did you go work at Macca's or Coles or?
Yeah.
What did it look like?
So, I grew up in country Victoria. Went
Nice.
to boarding school for VCE, so left like where I grew up, and then went to Bendigo and did a couple of years
Yep.
there, and then moved to Melbourne for uni. So I studied marketing and management. Did a double degree there, and
Yeah.
while I was studying, worked part-time at times. Well, it was Intensity. It was effectively Time Zone, like an arcade place that was owned by Village Roadshow.
I want to say a massive thank you to those who have supported me with the new Catch Pro discount code. In appreciation, I'm offering a prize for one lucky Catch Pro customer before the end of the year. If you live in Australia and purchase from Catch Pro with the discount code LawnStars10, in all caps, for those who have already done so and up until the 15th of December, this is a real and significant prize, unlike some booby traps I've heard of recently. It is a Catch Pro product worth over $500, so get cracking with your LawnStars10 code on the Catch Pro online shop, and thank you for your support.
And
I remember the names.
Had a good little gig there, and got my first hand experience, I suppose, of what working for a big corporate was like. Amongst all the, the Dance Revolutions and the Big Buck Hunters and the air hockey tables and that sort of thing, I got a pretty good taste of the downside of corporate to a lot of degree, which was interesting. So that was probably like my first real taste into business, I suppose, like other than uni and what I was studying at the time. That was sort of my first
I think
hand experience.
a lot of us have an entrepreneurial spirit at some level, right? So when you're finishing school, thinking about further study or going into blue-collar work if you don't want to do more study, you probably heard the idea of passive income and say, oh, you know what, pokey machines, vending machines, pinball machines, whatever it might be, they produce a passive income.
Yeah. Yeah.
So your brain would have been firing, especially given your specialty at uni doing marketing and what did you say, marketing and management?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would have been firing all of the entrepreneurial pins in your brain.
Yeah, it was, because, like, granted, it wasn't until the end of high school that I actually, like, right towards the end, that I was like, I actually want to pursue business. Like, there's something about that entrepreneurial thing. There's something about, like, seeing the fruits of your labour and, like working, working at the face to build something that you get to, control the destiny of, or, like, build with your own hands. So yeah, it really wasn't until the end of high school that I sort of got a taste of that, and I was like, right, let's go and do business. My fallback was becoming a professional musician, and I'm sort of glad I didn't take it that way.
So, professional musician, what instruments do you play?
I'm a brass man, so I cut my teeth as a young kid. Playing cornet, a little small version of the trumpet, the squashed-up version, playing in brass bands. The local little town that I grew up in had their own sort of town and district bands. I used to play competitively with marching bands sort of across Victoria, that sort of thing.
Wow.
Brass.
We could geek out. We could geek out on this. I could go and grab my cornet out of the back room and show you how awful it looks.
Have you brought this up in conversation before? I didn't realise you're a brass man.
Look, I prefer to talk about motorbikes, obviously, but I did it in school for a little while. I never went to the level you did. So hats off to you for pursuing it to a professional level. I played in this.
I wouldn't probably a long straw, a long bow to draw to call it professional. It was competitive, but it wasn't particularly professional. Put it that way.
Well, my experience was sort of 2 or 3 years in early high school, and then I did not enjoy it, and I said to my parents, I need to focus on study. Not that paid off, but it was very much a case of going, I've got a good excuse to not keep on playing because I'm miserable.
Very cool.
But I do like it. I really do. And I know that it just comes down to practice, which is probably the thing we're going to hear a bit of today when we talk about business skills as well, is really it's all about getting your head to just think about those things over and over again and become commonplace. But when it comes to playing an instrument, it's like the cornet, the trumpet, one of my favourites. Saxophone is right up there too.
Yeah, I think like you said, there's a point of being disciplined, which is part of music and playing an instrument. I think the big part for me is the creativity. Like it's a bit of an outlet, and it's also a way that you get to, I suppose, like express yourself. In the way that you play, or the kinds of music you play, or the people you play with. I think it's a pretty special way to be able to do a few of those things at once through music.
Well, my ex played for the Marching Koalas years and years ago, so that's a little claim to fame for her. She's no longer a part of my life. We won't talk about her anymore. It's all good.
Right. You can edit that out if you need to.
No, I'm an open book, maybe. But so amongst your many talents, playing brass, and as you finished school, you were straight into uni.
Yep.
So was it a double major, or was it a single degree with two specialties?
Yeah. So double major. It was. Bachelor of Business was sort of the overall, and then with 2 majors in marketing and management.
Okay, yeah. That means it's probably 5 years to do it?
4. Yeah.
Okay,
I almost turned it into 5. I failed a number of subjects during my time, which meant that I had to do an extra semester. I remember being sat down by my parents. I think it was probably like 2nd or 3rd year uni, and they very generously said, like, is this for you? Like, you know, do you really want to do this? And at that stage, I pulled my head in and I made some changes and saw it through.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was 4 years of study effectively.
I was talking to a young guy on the weekend that's about to start engineering degree, and I said, "Oh, that's the party degree. You have to head down, bum up if you want to avoid those engineer parties."
Oh, mate. The engineer parties was pretty much the only time they'd party. My experience was that the engineers were pretty good at like studying and knuckling down, but then when it was time to party, they would party harder than anyone else.
Unstoppable.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So 4 years of uni and finished your degree.
Yep.
So what was your thoughts after uni? Did you have a gap year or did you go straight into field of expertise?
Now that you remind me, I did actually have a gap year. Although I
Nice.
planned for it to be a gap year, but it only lasted like 5 or 6 months.
Yeah, okay.
So when I finished uni, I wasn't really sure, or I wasn't really certain on what I wanted to do next.
Yeah.
I had an interview with an advertising firm that sort of did like strategic market research and then advertising, and they were looking for someone to jump in on the client side. So that probably would have been an easy next step, but like even just briefly going back to what I said before about my experience with like corporate culture and bigger organisations and that sort of thing, I was kind of wary of that, even at that stage.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, I'll take a gap year and sort of work out what I want to do. Yeah, do I want to jump into the corporate world, or do I want to look at starting my own thing, which is inevitably what I did. So I, decided to take the year off, and I probably got to like April or May, and was like, I know what I want to do. I want to start my own business. I'm not going to go and jump into someone else's business at this stage, or jump into the corporate world. I want to start my own.
Yep.
And that was sort of an interesting time. I had a look at a few different business opportunities. I think I was really looking at finding something that I could sink my teeth into, something that was a bit of an opportunity with. I looked at like online retail. I looked at hospitality opportunities. I mean, like, granted, this is like 15 years ago when hospitality businesses were still worth getting into and a lot easier to get into, put it that way. So I looked at that, and then I looked at service-based businesses as well. And in the end, I was like, okay, here's an opportunity. And decided that lawn and garden maintenance was the way to go, because I saw that there was sort of a bit of a gap in businesses in that industry that were doing great quality work and charging well for it, and then the guys who were just in doing lawns and sole operators, and saw that there was an opportunity perhaps to build something bigger than myself, which is what I wanted to do regardless of what business I was in. And so because I had sort of, limited funds, I didn't have unlimited money, I looked at a business that, didn't require a lot of startup capital, looked for a business that had a lot of opportunity in the industry, and that was something that I enjoyed doing too. Like, I love the outdoors, and at that stage, I loved meeting people and dealing with people, and really loved small business, and made the decision all of 5 months into my gap year to start a business.
Now, this is an interesting topic. I want to come back to this towards the end of our interview, in terms of your point from starting the business is different to other people, and a lot of people will start in this industry from, I'm leaving a job to create myself a job. Some people will start straight into our industry as a trade, so they'll do horticulture or parks and gardens or something like that. After they've done a few years with their boss, they might go out and start their own business. And some people come in with business skills like yourself, either from a corporate career or straight out of uni. But yeah, those three different perspectives make a massive difference to how you approach the business when you're starting. So I'd love to dive deep on that. But let's keep talking about your startup, where you positioned yourself there. So another speculative comment there. I was studying 1997, 1998, 99, roughly. I think it was 97, 98. And at that point in time, I was aware of gyms mowing, and there were people I knew that were running franchises back then. But I would have called them almost deplorable. Maybe that's a bit rough. But certainly I looked at it from the perspective of a young, freshly finished school person and going, why would I want to do that? You pay so much money for a franchise and make hardly any money lawn mowing.
Yeah.
And then, 10 years later, I'm like, oh, that's actually a really good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, like even on that, like the whole idea of, like when I started the business, I was very, very hesitant to ever want to even entertain the idea of trying to turn something into a franchise. And I think there was a couple of reasons for that. One was that I didn't like the idea of losing control of the end product that was being produced. Like that's, like, yes, there's one thing to have employees, but you can still have some level of sort of oversight and control and metrics in place that monitors the quality and, the service that you provide.
Yeah.
And then you sort of lose a level of that with franchising. I never really liked that idea. The second,
I think gyms do it really well, but sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I totally agree. I think it can be done well. It just, for me, wasn't something that I necessarily wanted to entertain. The second
That's
thing,
understandable. Yeah.
Yeah. The second thing was that I had a business mentor of sorts that I knew who had been pretty essential with Gloria Jeans. So huge amount of franchise experience.
Yeah.
And he made a comment to me one day where he's like, don't go into franchising unless you want your job to be in litigation, contracts, and putting out spot fires. That stuck with me. It's like in owning a franchise, you go from doing potentially what you love, which could be, being the technician and in our instance, lawn and garden maintenance and doing a great job there, to then becoming, stuck in an office and just dealing with contracts and litigation and that sort of thing. So that stuck with me. So that's why I never really entertained the franchise idea.
I looked at it when I started up from the perspective of, do I buy a franchise rather than do I create a franchise? Or do I go independent? And for me, it was an easy choice to go independent. I'm down the track, however, I can see why people who come into it with a bit of money find it a lot easier to start by buying a franchise. In terms of everything's handed to them on a platter, all their systems and that sort of thing. But yeah, the notion of creating a franchise is a whole different topic, isn't it? Yeah. And don't get me wrong. I think I don't like the battle between the independents and the franchises. I think the franchise business model is successful because at the end of the day, it has to work for the franchisees. So it's got to be worth their while. And I know people in the gym systems at many different levels as far as where they are at with their business, whether or not they've bought an established round or whether or not they're starting up in a new territory. And they're all surviving and, thriving. They've all got enough work on. They're,
paying their bills, they're enjoying the work-life balance that it brings, particularly in comparison to whatever they were doing before. So yeah, I'm certainly not anti-franchise. It just never would have been my pick of the options.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So, but you did like the idea of getting into the lawn care and gardening industry.
Yeah, I think initially attracted to working outdoors, and the job satisfaction that you get multiple times a day. I could see that was going to happen. I saw that it was going to be possible for me to use my skill set and my experience and sort of the things that I'd learnt in marketing and hit the ground running with that, and to some degree do a good job of, try and do a good job of beating my competitors in my area who weren't necessarily all that proactive with their marketing. So I saw that there was a real opportunity there as well. And that there was an opportunity that the industry was like a profitable industry to be in. Particularly when you're starting out, and once you've established a client base as like a sole operator, it can be a really great industry to be in. So that was super attractive from the start.
So you started the same year that I started, 2010.
Correct. Yeah, May 2010.
And oh wow, very close, because I started end of March, early April. I'm pretty sure that my business was registered in March. I can't remember whether I actually mowed my first lawn in March or not, but yeah. So very similar timing. And here, I'm north of Sydney, so Newcastle area.
Yep.
The market at that time, there was quite a good demand for lawn mowing and gardening. But the market at that point in time was probably pushing $50 an hour or somewhere around there.
Yeah. So I think when I started, I was probably at the 45 an hour. Again, this is 2010. Don't have a heart attack. People listening. But yeah, I would have been at the 45 an hour, and that would have been at the upper range of what businesses were charging at that stage, or lawn and garden maintenance businesses.
And that was normal in that time. And obviously, it's interesting because I would consider where I started was more regional compared to yours necessarily might have been more suburban.
Yeah, well, I was definitely I was eastern suburbs Melbourne. I always had a feeling that for whatever reason, the rates that we were getting in Melbourne were generally less than what, Sydney and Queensland were getting. I always got that sense, at least in the earlier years, that we were probably sitting, 10-20% lower than what businesses of the same level could command in Sydney, for example.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I've talked to people all over the country, and I still get that with some guys around Melbourne, that they are stuck slightly under market value compared to other capital cities, or even compared to other parts of Melbourne sometimes.
Yeah. I definitely think that trend, for whatever reason, would still be the same. And I think that's probably just part market expectation. Not that you're setting prices purely based on market expectation, but I sense that that's probably the reason why there is that difference between, on average, what maybe people in Melbourne are charging to, businesses in Perth or, Sydney or Brisbane.
Well, I've been saying for the last year or so that the Australian public at the moment have a perception that they can hand over $80 for something to be done. So it doesn't matter whether it's a 200 square metre job or a 1,000 square metre job. Generally speaking, those guys are going to be like, I can hand over $80 each time you turn up. But if you're charging $120, doesn't matter about the size of the job, right? Just that's the thing that's in their head that blocks them.
Yeah.
And I guess the counter to that is, what is it in the business owner's head that's blocking them? And that perception that the demographic they're targeting is lower socioeconomic, or that they are seeking cut price business rather than the best business in town is really interesting, because I know for me, and I'm sure you'll say the same thing, but tell me, the amount of times I turned up to quote a job in the first year or two and they said the last guy hasn't turned up. And it's like,
Yep.
clearly I'm offering a higher standard than the last guy was, so I should be able to charge more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would say 50% of the time I was doing a quote was generally on the back of the last business not having given great service. And so that meant that I could, with the pricing, would happily get more than what they were, like the previous gardener was previously charging, purely for the fact that I showed up when I said I would, quoted when I said I would, sent them through an email with the quote details when I said I would, and immediately bringing a better level of service than what someone else was. It was a great opportunity, straight off the bat in a quote to go, well, this is why I'm higher, is like, if you're going to complain about the price that I give you, like, go and find your last guy. Like, where is your last guy?
And I'm judging you already as being slightly more professional than I was when I started up, right? So by comparison, 2010, you're running around with a business plan. I'm running around with, thinking about should I be wearing uniform or not. And
shirt optional, shirt on, shirt off kind of vibe.
I think I was really professional, but if I put the two of us beside each other, you were the next level, I reckon. But just at a guess, and that'd become more evident as we talk about your business building strategies as well. But certainly that would seem to be true at that point in time. So, yeah, those sorts of things were running through my head. But I guess that's what I'm saying, like that balance of, do I trust myself? Have I got the confidence to tell the customer it's worth $80 instead of $60? Have I got the confidence to tell the customer I know what's best and I'm going to be regular, consistent, and all the things your last guy wasn't?
You're right. Like, there's definitely a big part of how confidence plays into how you quote and the results of your quote. Like, I don't know, maybe I was just too stubborn or too proud. Like, I never found myself in a position, like rightly or wrongly, where I was reneging on my price during a quote. I was never the kind of guy to go in and say, the job will be $100, and then the client will be like, can you do it for 80? I'll be like, no, sorry, this is the price. Like, and then but I know other operators who will do it to win the work, or they sort of fall in love with the property or the job, and will renege on their own prices just to win the job.
Well, I know I did that, right? And I don't like the word renege. It's renegotiation, Paul.
Sorry.
No, renege sounds so negative. But it is,
realignment.
Right? And
we'll call it realignment.
And I have this distinct memory. I've regurgitated this story on the podcast a few times, where I quoted a job that took 3 hours, and I quoted him $150, and he said, the last guy was doing it for $100, and I'm like, well, I can't do it for $100. I'll go $120. And I can't remember whether he talked me down to $110 or I talked him up to $120, but either which way, after 6 months, it was probably close to 12 months, I said to him, look, this is a joke, it's $150, and he just about spat his teeth out, old guy. And I said, look, I'll give you another mow while you find somebody else. And he says, I'm not getting somebody else. I'm not happy with your price, but I'll pay you because you do a good job.
Yeah. And I think, it just comes back to, like running your business on customers' expectations is a recipe for disaster. And not saying that's what you did, but like the ultimate example of that would be is like someone continuing to run their business on customer expectations rather than their own desire as a business operator, will just put you in a world of pain.
Well, that story is a clear example of the fact that the customer was willing to pay $150 the whole time, but he wanted to know that he was getting better than what his previous guy was.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And so I just lost 12 months undercharging.
Yeah, fun.
But that's so. In your early days, you were on the tools, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Outdoors, loving being on the tools, getting fit.
Yeah.
And how long did you stay solo before you started growing and going, I need to put on employees?
So I probably did just over 2 years, I think I worked solo.
Yeah.
And I built it up to doing... I got to like 5 big days a week. I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to put someone on at this stage.
Yeah.
And then I made a decision to go, okay, I'll go to 6 days a week.
Yep.
So I built out some extra clients just for a period of time. And then whilst I was doing that, started looking for my first employee. And the idea was that once I found that first employee, I could drop my days back to, say, 4 days a week so that I could still meet my own personal expenses, and then have at least a minimum of 2 days a week for someone else. So I did that. It probably took me 3 to 6 months to find my first employee. It was a referral from a friend of mine who ran an auto trimming business, and he had a guy that had been helping him out on weekends when he was busy with a couple of his project cars, who just happened to be a fully qualified greenskeeper who'd been working at a local golf club, finished his apprenticeship, and was sort of looking for a job, but also wasn't sure whether or not he was actually going to stay in the industry. So he was sort of at this loose end deciding what he wanted to do, and it just worked well that I needed someone to start off a couple of days a week with me. And that was Adam, my first employee.
Nice. And already fully qualified, so you didn't have to even train him.
I was super fortunate with him. To have him as a first employee, he was fully qualified, was happy just to do a couple of days a week, and was really good at what he did. Feel very, very fortunate to have been able to find someone like that as my first employee, because, for any business owner who's looking to make that step, that first employee is often going to be the make or break, as you look to build a business beyond yourself.
Now, I've talked about putting on first employee numerous times, and the fact that we often call them an offsider or a helper or something that's denigrating a little bit. But my first experience with employees is that they were great. I was just undercharging because at that $50 an hour mark, by the time I paid them $20 an hour, I worked out I wasn't making money off them.
Yeah.
And it's sad.
Yeah. And that's, that was my journey as well. That was the same thing. It's like, you can naively, and I was naive, you go into it putting on your first employee, and I think you just look at it through the lens of, okay, how can I ultimately get, more money in the bank? You think, all right, I want to get more money in the bank, so I'll find more work, and I'll find someone to service that work, and then, magically more money will appear in my bank account. But like you experienced, like I experienced, it's not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. You do come across that point where you go, okay, I've got to think more than just paying this person's wage and covering that expense to be able to make this work, to have an employee in the first place.
So another speculative comment on employees, because if we call it speculative, I can just say whatever I want and make it up and make it sound good, right? But if we're talking about employees, like if you go, and your comment 1 + 1 is what brings this on, right? I can do 40 hours of paid work in a week. Now, when I'm driving in between jobs, I'm probably doing more like 25 to 35 hours of paid work in the week, depending on how good the route density and the efficiencies is. But when I've got an employee, we double all of the inefficiencies. So that travel time is multiplied by 2. They're not motivated to work hard because they don't make more money for working harder. So when you add it up and you go, okay, the employee's not 1 + 1. They're not working as hard as the business owner, and we've got the inefficiencies of the business. It doesn't make sense. But on top of that, you go, okay, when I'm working on the tools, when you're working on the tools in the early days and you're on your own, you go, all right, out of that $50 for that 1 hour that I worked, there's $20 in expenses, give or take, $15, $20 in expenses, and the rest is mine, and I call it profit. But when I pay an employee, the rest is broken up into paying, on top of the $15 expenses before that, another $20 for an hour to pay the employee. That's 15 years ago we're talking. And what's left after you pay that? That's $35, maybe up to $40 that's gone. So you make $5 or $10 out of that hour job that the employee did.
Yeah.
So if you want to compare, you go, okay, on my own, I'm doing, say, $30, maybe $35 in an hour is mine if I'm doing really well back in 2010.
Yep.
The employee's not even doing a fraction of that because I'm getting $5 or $10 out of the hour for them instead of the $30, $35 that I get for me. So if you put a number on it, you go, okay, this is the speculation. 3 employees out in the field is almost the equivalent income as me being out in the field on my own.
Yeah.
Some people say more like 10 employees because there's so many inefficiencies when you have employees, particularly when you're not there holding their hand and whipping them as you go.
Yeah. And on that, like that particular idea is definitely what creates what I call like the murky middle of like trying to grow a business. Is that once you go beyond like your first employee, like employees, depending on where your pricing's at and your profit margin's at, employees like 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6, they're really not adding any like worthwhile profit to your worthwhile profitability to your business, because what is involved in being able to then equip them and give them, you know, their pay and their super and the additional business insurance premiums that come as a result, and your work cover and all that sort of thing. Like you could be making the same profit with 2 employees as you would 5 or 6 employees. So it's like this murky middle. It's not until you get on the other end of that then maybe it starts to make sense from a profitability point of view.
Now, I started my business as a family trust with a company as the shell, so people get charged from my company, but the family trust banks the money, right?
Yep.
Sounds a little bit corrupt, but it's not. It's legit. Anyway, the point I'm making is in that setup, I was covered under my own workers' comp policy because I'm the working director of the business. So therefore, I had a workers' comp policy from day dot. When I put on my first employee, I didn't go, oh yeah, I need to have more insurance that I didn't already have. I already had it. Now, the policy goes up based on the amount of hours I'm paying out in wages.
Yep.
But it was a easy game for me compared to somebody else who's going, oh, I've got to go and get an insurance broker or try and negotiate all of these things myself.
Yeah.
So that made sense for me, but for a lot of people, that's a prohibitive cost putting on an employee. You have to have workers' comp.
Yeah.
And then everything else, like you're saying. So the borrowing from Luke Smith there, we talk about the pros and cons of having employees out in the field and whether you should send them out 1 by 1, 2 by 2, 3 by 3. And again, it depends on the type of work you're doing.
Yep.
So I could put on as many employees as I want. If I'm in one place all day, I can just sit there and be their supervisor, taskmaster, whatever you want to call it. But when you've got travel time, 2 by 2 seems to be a popular way to go. Sometimes 3 people out in one vehicle, and that way you've got a team leader and 2 subbies
Yep.
working with them. But 2 people in a vehicle seems to be really productive. Luke Smith argues strongly against that, but I think when you're trying to grow a business, that's where you end up, right?
Yeah.
And that means you've got that productivity gain, but it's not as efficient as you being in a vehicle on your own. But then you've also got to go, okay, one of them's getting paid a leadership bonus.
Yep.
And then once I've got 3 vehicles out there, I'm holding 6 different job titles in my hand.
Yep.
And at 3 vehicles out there, you've got to let go of one of those job titles.
Yep.
So you are the CEO, but you're also the admin assistant, the accountant, the vehicle maintenance, the equipment maintenance, the marketing, the everything, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm just looking at this. So you grew your business to how many employees?
So we had 13 employees. And
13 employees. All right. I'm just going to just disappear into the background here because I feel wildly inadequate when we're talking about the difference between your expertise and my expertise here.
Yeah, we'll flesh it out and see what you think once we get to the end of it.
I can be really speculative, but I haven't had 13 employees.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I suppose like framework of that to give you, I suppose, my perspective and touch on what you said before about like crew setups. For me, and for the maintenance business, crews of 2 was the sweet spot for us, and that's how we built our business.
yeah.
There was a couple of reasons for that. Like, I don't know if you want me to flesh it out much.
Well, look, I've got another 3 hours. No, I'm kidding. We've got time if you want to dive down a few rabbit holes.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, like,
we may have to come in for round 2.
Only because I think it's like a valuable sort of part of scaling up a business. Like in my instance, crews of 2 were a great sort of melding pot of all the different pros and cons. Primarily because you could put on a more senior staff member, what we would have as a leading hand or a crew lead, and you could pair them up with a junior member, and then it was their responsibility to obviously like oversee what they were doing. Yes, there was maybe like some level of inefficiency because, like you'd said, you know, like all those inefficiencies double when you've got 2 people sitting in a ute or, you know, going between jobs.
How many times did you bust them down at the servo having smoko or going up through Macca's drive-through when they're supposed to be on the
Look, I made sure we ended up, like, in the later years having a coffee machine at work so there wasn't any tardiness in the morning. And I was... Oh, man, I tell you what, the guys who were working with me in the early years, like this first, like, 4 or 5 years, they had it sweet. Because I would pay I would pay for their lunches. So, like, every day they were working with us, we were going to Subway or, you know, Red Rooster or whatever was close by to where our jobs were. And they were literally getting a free lunch and getting paid to eat it. So it was a pretty good deal for them. But
paid lunch breaks.
Only at that stage. That was the first few years, and then we reined things in a fair bit from there. But yeah, crews of 2. Just to touch on that, found that like from a relationship point of view and a camaraderie point of view, like our staff really appreciated working alongside someone else rather than just going out solo all the time. And it was more efficient to have 2 than it was to have 3 in a crew. Like, the only time I would ever have maybe 3 or more on a job would be if it was a huge clean-up job on one site and we needed lots of hands on deck. But for 99% of what we were doing, we were running a crew of 2.
I've heard people run crews of 3, but I think where you break away from a group of 2 for benefits is usually, like you say, on a large job. So if you're doing a big clean-up, I'm doing a commercial job where I'm there all day, then I can be more efficient by having 3 or 4 people or 5 people on one site because it's efficient when you're talking about staying in one place. It's not efficient when you've got that unbillable travel in between.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I think that's interesting. And in terms of your business there, with teams of 2 going out, so you had potentially 5 vehicles out on the road, or more.
Yeah, so like of the 7 vehicles that we had, our busiest days of the week, we would have 6 crews out, so 6
Yeah.
vehicles out. That was generally like Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays were our big days. Sorry,
Yeah.
Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays were our biggest days.
Yeah.
And then Mondays and Fridays, we might only send like 3 or 4 crews out.
Yeah,
Just
okay.
based on how we'd sort of put together our schedule. But yeah, three days a week we were sort of maxed. We were generally trying to run maxed out with
Yep.
all of our guys out on jobs.
And I hear some people saying that if you've got 12 employees, 13 employees, you can expect half of them to call in sick on any one day.
Yeah, like that is one of the big challenges as a business owner with lots of employees is that all the little things that can go wrong will go wrong more often than if you just had one employee. So that can be sick days. That can be equipment breakdown because your pieces of equipment
Broken
are
window.
getting more broken windows than normal.
Yeah.
More flat tires in utes, more forgetting keys to clients' properties more often. All those sorts of things will happen more often. And then obviously, that could be a whole other side shoot on systems and ensuring those things don't happen. But naturally, those sorts of annoyances, those sorts of disruptions, they all multiply when your crew size multiplies.
Yeah, for sure. So that's there's a lot of challenges. We could spend ages talking about all of that and what it looks like, but ultimately we want to talk a bit more about what has happened with your business and what you're doing more recently. So you reached a maximum of 13 employees, but now you're not in that same position. So what's happened?
Great question, mate. So behind the scenes with the business, particularly in the last second half of the business, so the last 6 or 7 years, because of the stuff that I didn't address in the earlier years of the business, we became increasingly under pressure, or I became increasingly under pressure financially. And so whilst we were growing the business, whilst I was growing the business, we hit some roadblocks. Some were self-inflicted, like decisions that I should have made differently, considerations that I should have made around profit margins and building out better systems in my business before I then scaled the business. I spent the second half of my life with Mobros catching up on those things that I wish I had have done sooner rather than later. So
Some of those things you can catch up. Some are not so easy.
No, that's right. And like I said, some of those were totally my own fault. And, we'd sort of get under steam and we'd start working on those things, and then things that you can't account for, like COVID, happen. And you end up sitting in this holding pattern and hoping that, you still come out the other side of it. So to give you a brief, in 2023, would have been end of 2023, start of 24, so start of last year, I was in a position where I had to make a decision either to continue to scale the business even further than where we were at, so that we had enough cash flow in the business to meet our ongoing liabilities and expenses, as well as pay back the stuff that we were playing catch up on, or I could wind down the business. That was sort of the catalyst for a lot of things that have been bubbling away, and then a couple of things that had happened at the start of last year. Laura and I, my wife and I and our kids had moved from where we were in Melbourne down to the Mornington Peninsula, which was a move to be closer to my dad, who lives down here, and spend some time closer with him. And then all of about 2 weeks later, I had one of my key employees resign and go to a competitor. And it was just this absolute layer cake of things that needed to be decided upon ultimately quickly. So, like in full transparency, like what we're playing catch up on was debt with the ATO from just before COVID, and then we were trying to play catch up on that, putting money, like any available profit we had, back into the business during that time, and then during COVID, and then post-COVID as well, whilst then trying to meet the cash flow needs of a business that we were trying to build so that we could get back on top of things. It was just real perfect storm. And so ultimately at the start of 2024, I had to make a pretty tough decision and decided to wind down the business and enter into voluntary insolvency.
Yeah, that's a tough emotional decision. And what you're saying that I'm hearing there is a feeling of overwhelm that's attached to you holding all of these buckets and knowing that some of them are overflowing and some of them are emptying and not being out of control. So that the emotion that's attached to that is what I'm saying is massive, and it is overwhelming, which is one of the reasons why it's really hard for you to make sound business decisions that will point you back in the right direction, other than the fact that, you know, sometimes some of those buckets are so empty and others are overflowing that you can't actually correct easily or course steer back in the right direction. It might take years if you can point it back in the right direction, and the ATO is not always that lenient when it comes to those things. So there's a lot going on for you at that point. And I certainly wouldn't judge anybody who is in that position where they have to make that decision or they feel that's the best decision to make. But I can appreciate it because I know what it's like when I've been unaware of how much tax I owe, and I try and keep on top of that at the moment. But when it comes to having good accountants and making sure that you're aware of exactly where you're up to, I've actually had the last 3 years going, hang on, my accountants aren't talking to me. What's going on? Give me something. Give me an answer. I need to know. And then the ATO sends me a letter saying, hey, what's going on? And I'm like, talk to my accountants. It doesn't work, does it? Like, there's only so much you can do.
Exactly. And like the underpinning issue within my business was that, like, my profit margin in the early days was not as high as it should have been. Like, I didn't have enough profit in my business or was generating enough cash flow to be able to comfortably move through those stages of growth within the business. So, like, we would be putting money aside for tax, and that would be sitting, you know, in an account, and then cash flow needs would be, like we're short on payroll, where are we going to get that money this fortnight? And then naively going, well, all right, I'll take some of that out of that account. We'll get payroll done, and then we'll continue to scale the business. And as we scale the business, then we'll be able to, you know, that extra profit that's generated is to be able to play catch up. And we ultimately got to I ultimately got to a point where we had cash flow and we had caught up. Like, we had caught up. We were able to meet our ongoing, like, expenses and liabilities within the business. But we still then had to then utilise that cash flow to pay our historic stuff as well. And we negotiated with the ATO for probably 12 months between me, the accountant, and the ATO. And ultimately, we came, like I came forward. When I say we, I'm talking like the accountant and I came forward with a proposal that was to pay, like, be back up on deck within 3 years. And the ATO came back at that stage. This was post-COVID when they were really reining in like a lot of debt, and said, we'll give you 6 months. And so it was like, there was just no way that I was going to be in a position where I could pay that back in 6 months and still have cash to meet the ongoing needs of the business. And that's at the point that it was like, all right, it's one or the other. It's like we can't continue the way we are, so we either have to scale up hugely, which then became a big challenge in losing one of our like key staff members in Melbourne, and me having moved like physically away from the business for particular reasons, or make the decision to have to wind it down.
Look, I just want to say that's really big that you are able to make those course corrections and go to the ATO and say, hey, we're on track. It's going to take us 3 years, but we're on track to meet every requirement and we're heading in the right direction. It is heartbreaking for the ATO to turn around and say, I'm not giving you that.
Like, I'm not here to play like any political game or blame it on the government. Like, I totally understand, given the situation that like the government are in, and the ATO is not in, they're not in the business of just giving away money or not reining in money that is due to them. I totally get that. But the fact, like, that post-COVID, the ATO were making decisions on businesses that could have otherwise paid back their debts had they been given more time to then foreclose on those businesses, or force, put business owners in a position where they would have to go through voluntary insolvency, is a pretty bitter pill to swallow as well. And what was I going to say?
Well, I just want to say, I think that what you had done was awesome, the fact that you had reached that point. And I know what you're saying, like, you can't expect the ATO to just turn a blind eye continuously and all of that. But I think it is a massive thing that you were able to sit down with your accountant and reach that point where you're like, we can see the other side of this. It's not something, most businesses will never actually do that. When they're that deep in the hole, it's usually, no, I can't see the other side of it. There's no way out of that hole. Close it.
And sorry, that's what I was going to say before. Like, it was a big decision to make, and it was at that stage the right decision to make. It was a really brutal process, and has been a really brutal process to go through for a number of reasons. And one challenge I've really had to work through is that because of my business structure as a sole trader right through this time from business inception until now, I wasn't eligible for some of the remedies that the ATO and the government had put in place post-COVID. So there's this thing called a small business restructure that registered companies had access to, but sole traders didn't. And that was effectively a process where, to save companies from going into insolvency, the ATO were negotiating and allowing businesses to negotiate on their debt by up to 85%. So if you owed, say, 100 grand to the ATO, you could do a deal with them for 15 grand, and they would say, yep, let bygones be bygones, you can continue trading, just give us 15 grand. And that wasn't a lever that was available to me purely because I was a sole trader.
That sucks. I mean, like I say, this is not political, this is just telling your story, but it really does. Like, it's, especially when you've put the effort in and worked it through, and you're, but let's look at what that has done for you. Obviously, that's a massive life lesson. You're letting down employees, or you feel like you're letting down employees. That's a really tough lesson for you and your employees to go through. But following that happening, you're willing to start talking to me about this, which is big, and you've been moving in another direction in business now. So I'd like to get a really good feel for what that looks like for you now. You're in a position where you're okay. You're looking at helping other people. You are helping other people?
Yeah. So I share this part of my story knowing just how much of a juxtaposition it may appear to be on the outset. That on one end of my life as a business owner, I'm on one bookend is the insolvency and the bankruptcy that I've gone through as a business owner, and then on the other side has been a desire that I've had for pretty much ever since I finished uni, is to bring together the passion that I had for business and then the passion that I have for people. And the logical outworking of that for me has been always wanting to help other people with their businesses, grow their businesses and develop businesses that work and that are profitable. And here I am in this juxtaposition at the moment where I'm sitting and trying to reconcile what that looks like for someone like me who's, gone through a bankruptcy myself, but still has a desire to help others in their businesses. So, to your original question, I have for 15 years carried a big desire to work with other business owners. Like, that's always been part of something that I've loved about the lawn and garden maintenance industry, has been in the relationships and connections that I've sort of made. I'd sense that I have a real genuine heart for people, and I'm just sort of working in that space now as to what that looks like.
Well, look, I think talking about the lessons you've learnt along the way is really insightful. I'd like to reflect on my own experience here and go, okay, I've learnt some business lessons along the way as well. I've made some pretty horrendous mistakes myself. And if people were to tune into my podcast and it's just me talking about my life lessons and my own business lessons, they would have tuned out a long time ago. It wouldn't be worth hanging around for 4 years doing this. But my goal is to help other people, and I've done that via being able to share stories like yours and other people that are being in business. So I've found a unique way which I can reach people, and I do get feedback like that people listen to my podcast. It helps them in their business journey to be able to make improvements on their business and achieve successful businesses. So I look at that as similar to where you're at, although, like I said, I have not achieved as much as you have. And full recognition to the huge gains you made prior to the decision to wind the business down. That's a massive lesson in business you've learnt, and all of the things we've talked about in your history put you in an awesome position to be able to share that with other businesses.
I appreciate that, guys. I naturally am super stubborn. I'm half Dutch, and I get a lot of stubbornness from my mum's side of the family. And it like the irony is in that like I only ever really learn things by having experienced them for myself. Like it's one thing for other people to share their journey, and I genuinely appreciate that. And I've had to, and I'm learning still, and I've had to learn to go, okay, like I've got to take some level of pride out of this and stubbornness out of this and go, okay, like what am I actually learning in this process, both through what I've done, what other people have experienced and what I can glean off that, and also go, okay, well, like how do I help people avoid the mistakes that I made, particularly on, in those earlier years on the business. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So currently you are working on coaching other people?
Yeah.
And
so I do, I've set up a coaching sort of business where I'm doing like one-on-one and group coaching sort of work with service-based businesses. And I'm also doing some marketing work as well for other service-based businesses. I'm doing that currently 2 days a week. I'm still 2 days a week on tools in people's gardens. I've still got a handful of clients down on the peninsula that I look after, and was really fortunate to be able to continue to look after those clients and have something to continue on with to like pay bills and support my family. So still doing 2 days a week of that while I build out a coaching business and marketing business as well.
Yeah.
Efficiency is the thing that rules a business and the decisions you make as a small business owner. Right Mowers give you the options in their product lineup to match efficiency with size, fuel usage and the type of jobs you want to target, from catching to mulching or side discharge, from roadside verges to acreages and manicured lawns to 6 feet tall and super long. I've been using the Right Stander I 42-inch with a Catch Pro for manicured areas and the Stander ZK61 to maximise productivity for large open acreage mowing. If you need to replace your push mower, try the 32-inch Stander B. If you have more open access to residential properties, there's a 42 through to 48-inch option that suits you. And if you want to enter the acreage market, the 52, 61 and 72-inch machines have choices in engine size and model type to suit the work you want it to do. Right Standards go the distance, saving you time and money, season after season.
So, Paul, I get people ask me for advice from time to time, and like I said, I can offer a little bit of insight into things, and I'm more than happy to, but my biggest flex is not my story, it's yours. My biggest flex is going, hey, tune into my podcast every week. You're going to hear somebody else talking about what works well for them, what doesn't work well for them, and the journeys they've had. So making the choice to coach other people in business, you've got a wealth of experience. I mean, I've got some experiences, but similar time span, but there's several things you've done I have not done in business. So that puts you in a position where you can coach people through those areas of specialty. And I'm thinking specifically in terms of scaling a business.
Yep.
You've got experience in doing that. That has worked for you. And also when it comes to your degree, you've got good experience in the two things that are important to scale a business, so marketing and management. And I find myself constantly looking for people who can speak to those two topics. So I don't know if you've listened to some of my recent episodes, but this year I've been focusing on going, okay, you can look at the difference between just word of mouth marketing or just paying for marketing, where you're handing out flyers or putting up ads on Google and Facebook and the likes. And I've been reinforcing to people that, and by talking to people like yourself, if you look at word of mouth, yes, it works. It works 100% of the time. Right? So 100% of the time when somebody chooses to approach you because they've noticed your business, That's a success.
Yep.
But when you pay for an ad on Google or a flyer in a letterbox, the inquiry rate is more like 0.5%. So the majority of people who start a business, you know how we talked about the 3 people starting a lawn care business, the tradies who have done their horticulture or whatever degree or trade they've done, sorry, not degree,
Yep.
versus people like yourself who come in with managerial or corporate experience versus people like myself who just come into it and just going, well, I'm just being self-employed. I'm just coming in to just create a job, right? When you're talking about those 3 people, most of them don't understand the difference in marketing, and so their experience dictates, hey, I got 100% success rate because the neighbour asked me over the fence. I got 0% because half of 1% is pretty close to 0, right? When I tried to put flyers out in letterboxes. So I'm just going to stick with what works. The reality my experience said there is my business didn't grow when I just relied on word of mouth. Yes, I got new customers, but it didn't grow, and it certainly can't scale based on word of mouth alone. So you've got that unique experience of actually studying marketing and then having some experience in a marketing firm before you started your own business. What can you share with the listeners in terms of marketing? And I guess we don't want to give away all of your secrets. We want people to actually think about getting coaching with you. But if they're listening to this and they are going, oh, you know, like I've just said, like their brain tells them 100% success rate because the neighbour sticks their head over the back fence, but 0% success rate when they do paid advertising.
Yeah.
Over to you.
Well, look, like I'm a pretty open book, and if anything, I probably and I intentionally deliver more value than I charge for. So, like, even working with some business owners back in October for free, I did some one-on-one coaching with a couple of guys, and
Wow.
you know, they very quickly saw some big returns for no cost, and I say that to say, like, I am here to, like, help bring value. Like, I'm actually not here having this conversation to want to, like, try and drum up coaching stuff. I just want to help listeners, like, bring some value based on my experiences, both, you know, what you've just alluded to, Gary, like maybe my strengths around marketing and my experience around marketing and scaling, but also my experience based on my weaknesses and, you know, what I've come to learn about what it actually takes to run a profitable business, and to learn from things that I'd sort of had either taken for granted or had naively sort of considered would be, you know, not an issue within my business, particularly in the earlier years. From a marketing perspective, like when I ran my own business, my drive from what I did from a marketing perspective was to not just look at marketing from an avenue in which you drum up customers, but it's actually that you're drumming up demand for your services. And so you actually want to have a look at what your goals are as a business, just in general, like what you want your business to do for you and what you want your business to help you achieve, because then that actually will help you to realize how important it is, like how important marketing is to your business. Like if you have, you know, let's say you have trained in horticulture and you're wanting to start your own business, like first thing you want to do is go, okay, well, this is the position I'm in. How long have I got from a resource perspective, from a finance perspective, between this day dot of which I have no clients to which I need to be making X amount a month or a week or whatever to be able to sustain, you know, my lifestyle or to be able to support my family. And that should then help you to decide on, okay, like how important is marketing to my business at the moment? Like marketing is what brings in the leads. And I've talked about word of mouth before, and yes, like it can definitely be a powerful tool, but likewise, I think you can't rely on word of mouth to build a business. And I also appreciate that, like, when I talk about building a business or growing a business, it doesn't necessarily need to be about building a business beyond yourself. Like, if you have no intention of wanting to put on employees and scale up a business, that is fine. But marketing is still important. Like, marketing is what, for a solo operator, will be the difference of you being able to have a client base of everyone who you're charging out at modest rates, you know, $80 to $100 an hour. Let's not go into the hour fixed job price war discussion today.
Yep.
But either to that client, you can have a client base of all those kinds of clients, and marketing can be the difference between that and then actually being able to get your business in front of people who are willing to pay you $20, $30, $40, $50 an hour plus more for your services. And it's not even just like a branding thing. It's not you put the words high end in the front of your business and then you just automatically attract, clients that are willing to pay more. But it's actually just the volume thing. It's like, where are you appearing? Like, when people are looking for your types of services, are you getting in front of them so that you can at least have a conversation with them, so that you can at least then book in a quote, so that you can then at least go, well, this is what I'm actually worth. And marketing is what drives that growth in your business, regardless of whether or not you want to scale up and have 1,000 clients, or whether or not you just want to optimize your business as a solo operator and have better paying clients. Like, marketing is the key to that.
Yeah, and it really is. I think, like I said, if you just rely on word of mouth, you can actually grow slowly. But in my experience, it didn't grow. My business did not grow massively, or even like marginally replaced customers that I lost through word of mouth. It'd certainly get inquiries, but not enough inquiries to go, oh yeah, I want to go from 20 customers to 100 customers. No, it didn't do that. So, yeah, the difference between deliberately adding to that word of mouth value through other avenues versus just relying on what your brain is telling you is the only successful form of marketing makes a massive difference.
Absolutely. And I think people like the idea that word of mouth is easy, that it's passive, that people are referring work onto you. But that can come with its own challenges as well. Like, what if the people who are referring work onto you are paying a discounted rate because you gave them mates rates? And then when they're talking to their friends about you, they're like, well, this guy's giving me mates rates. And the people that they're referring onto you are generally expecting the same thing. And likewise, your reputation, particularly when it comes to word of mouth, is only as good as, your reputation and your quality is. Like, if you have some challenges in your business and your schedule goes out the window and you are not communicating with your clients as best as you should be, or the quality of your service goes downhill for whatever reason, that adversely affects that method of, getting new clients as well. So, I think that word of mouth is a powerful tool, like when the basis of where that word of mouth is spreading is great, but I definitely don't think it should be the only tool. Like, when it comes to marketing in general, like I'd refer to them as marketing pillars, like the different ways in which you market your business. And the more pillars you can put in place, the better. But just make sure that you are doing each of those pillars well before you move on to the next one.
So we won't go too much more in marketing, but I think just briefly touching on some of those pillars, my word of mouth marketing is amplified when I wear a shirt with a logo on it. I have a uniform.
Yep.
Look more professional. I have a trailer that has my business name on it, or a vehicle that has my business name on it.
Yep.
And those little things, being professional when I speak to people, improve word of mouth, because then the potential customer becomes a client when they see, oh, yeah, he's better than the last guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm willing to pay a little bit more for it. But if you then add some paid things on top of that, so yeah, you're paying for a uniform, you're paying for the signage on your vehicle and your trailer, but if you're paying deliberately to put your name in front of new customers, you can choose things like targeting people that are in the same street you're already mowing, and you might choose, like you were saying before, you can end up in front of people who are expecting mates rates, or you can end up in front of, like, going to the street where that's the street you would favour over the one you don't favour, so you can then put flyers there, or you can even adjust Google and Facebook ads to target certain areas as well. So you could go, okay, I'm working predominantly in Cooranbong, but I know that Morisset Peninsula has a better pay rate than what I can get in Cooranbong. And I'm not saying that's true, just for instance, it's areas I've worked. So I could target Morisset Peninsula more and Cooranbong less. Now I would actually switch that around and say do it the other way, but leave that alone. When you start paying for advertising, you then amplify the word of mouth, the uniform, the everything else that goes along with it. Those people see, 5 touch points, 6 touch points, and all of a sudden they trust you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I love the idea of the phrase I use, or the term I use, is omnipresent. Like, your business is everywhere. Businesses that do well and have great lead flow coming into their business will be businesses that are doing a number of different things in conjunction with each other and generally at the same time. So, if you are being able to generate great discussions with your clients and they're having discussions with friends about how great your service is, and then they happen to see your ute drive past a few days later, and then they go, oh, all right, yep, look, we're looking for a gardener, let's get a quote, and then they jump online to have a look at some other businesses, and then they get to see your reviews or they see your ad pop up. Like, that omnipresence that you have from a marketing perspective just continues to build, like you said, all those touch points, all those bits of credibility that you have as a business, an established business that has obviously been around long enough to build up good clients and have a good reputation. Yeah, that whole idea of omnipresence and being everywhere where you can does a lot for being able to build a business and generate leads.
Hey, Paul, we've taken a couple of massive rabbit holes along the way, and it's been great. I really appreciate it. And, it's been emotional too. So let's have a look now at some of your specialist coaching skills. Now, given your wealth of experience that you've learnt in your own business, what are some of the things you see when you get asked to do coaching, or target areas you might actually focus on? I'm thinking, just looking at where we're up to. So we've covered marketing a fair bit, but your specialty leads you into a couple of areas. What does that look like?
Yeah, so I suppose I look at my specialty coming from two main sources. Like, some of the coaching that I do is very much based on the stuff that I have naturally been, I suppose, strong at in my journey with business over the last 15 years.
Yeah.
And then part of that skill set as well is in the things that I have had to learn, like the hard way, like things that I, implemented in my business 5, 6, 7, 8 years later than I wish I had I had my time again. But I suppose oh, you go.
Yeah, so one of those things we've focused on already is that marketing, right? So that's something you've studied, you've got your head around that really well, you really understand it, and I'm guessing you utilise that in your business well. So the other things that you have naturally in your arsenal, would a couple of other things in there? What would they look like?
So I suppose naturally, and I dare say that the crew that we had working with me as well would back me up on this, is that we did have, obviously able to build a big team. So 13 staff, being able to, find and attract and hire good quality staff and good people to work with. So building team is obviously like something that I spend a fair bit of time with business owners who are wanting to grow their business. And also, I suppose, journeying through what scaling a business actually entails and what's involved from a logistics point of view, from a like an operations point of view, from a practical point of view. Obviously, I've gone from 0 to 13 employees and have gained a lot of experience in what that looks like, from getting the most out of them, like building team culture, the logistics of, running schedules with multiple crews, overcoming sort of issues with either underperforming staff, or like interpersonal issues between staff. There's been a lot of ground to cover with that over the years that I was sort of running Mobros.
Now, I would say those two things are genuine mountains that a lot of business owners will fail to climb. I'm trying to say that the right way. That sounds like a good analogy. They're a mountain that they cannot climb, right? So building a team, I hear the cry a lot. It's really hard to find good employees because it's just you're looking for labour. You're literally not looking for skills. You're just looking for somebody who's happy to work outdoors in the heat and do hard work. And it's really hard to find people that want to do that and continue to do it. And I'm like, no, it's possible if you pay them well, you treat them well, you build the team, you do all the, you jump in there, take over. What does it look like to grow good teams?
So, like from an attraction point of view, and this is based on my own experience, but also like the conversations that I have with other business owners who've struggled with this. Like if we look at like attracting good quality staff, there needs to be a real shift from how people used to advertise roles within their business, from what it used to be 20 years ago, when there was heaps of labour available and not many jobs, and people had the ability to pick and choose, what staff they got, and they could get the best of maybe an average bunch, like pretty easily. But certainly, like from a supply, demand, and workforce related perspective, in the last 10 years, it's been increasingly difficult. And so I see that business owners need to change their perspective around what it actually takes to find good people. Even something as simple as like reading a job description or writing out a job description. A lot of business owners will just write out, here's my list of demands. You will be competent, you will be reliable, you will work for this much, you will do a great job, and here's where you send your application. And what that does now, and part of that's like a generational thing, but part of that is that we are in a, like the available labour force is not as abundant as it used to be. Now people have actually got the ability to pick and choose what jobs they take. They're not just trying to take anything that comes up. People looking for a job have got the opportunity to choose. And so they're looking for a job that is going to meet their needs. And I think business owners can find it challenging to find ways in which they are going to meet the needs of their employees because they're so used to just needing to meet their own needs or their own goals. And they've actually got to look at a way at which they can balance that and go, this is what I need from an employee, this is what they need to be able to do, and this is the quality of work they need to produce, and this is the experience they need to have. But they actually miss out on the part that speaks to the best employees. And that's actually a part that goes, this is what our business is about. this is the opportunity we have. This is the opportunity you have within our business. This is the sort of, culture we have in our business.
Yep.
This is what we really appreciate. Like, people coming to work for our business, we appreciate our staff. This is how we show our appreciation for the work you do, potentially outside of just the hourly rate that you're offering. Like, you've actually got to sell your business to the employees now, where, previously you didn't have to. And so I do a fair bit of work in helping people not just write out new job descriptions, but actually look at how they can attract great quality staff based on the culture and their expectations and those sorts of things that go into a business. So that can be a real, that's just sort of an example from an attracting point of view, like how to attract good staff.
Yeah.
I would say that there still are great staff out there.
Yes.
I would have lots of similar conversations as you did, Gary, with business owners. Like, dude, there's just no good staff around. Like, no one wants to work anymore. And yet, I still managed to build a team of 13 of great quality, respectable, responsible, fun staff to work with. So they're certainly still out there.
So one of the things you said is that you picked up a qualified greenkeeper fairly early on. Was that?
Yep.
Did you say that was your first staff member?
Yeah, so that was our first staff member. Other staff that we had through the business, we had a wide range. We had guys who had never worked in the industry before and were looking for a career change, and I hired them based on their merit of, I could see that they had done a good job in their previous industry and that their desire for a career change was legitimate. And we had guys who had started apprenticeships with other companies and were treated poorly and saw out their apprenticeships with us. Like, we saw them through to being qualified. We had other guys that didn't have qualifications but had been in the lawn and garden maintenance industry for ages, either full-time or casually, and they'd come across to us because we were able to offer them something that they were missing, in their previous workplace. So a wide range of people from different backgrounds.
So one of the observations I've made is that you can hire people because people want to be employees. The false information that our brain tells us, like with word of mouth advertising, right? It's true. 100% of people want they hear about you through word of mouth, right? But in this case, it's true, but it's false information, right? It's not helpful. So we started a business in an industry that's got a low barrier to entry, and a lot of people choose to do the same thing. So therefore, why would anybody want to work for me when they can go and start their own lawn care business? And that's false information.
Yep.
It will mislead your brain. Your brain will lie to you. And then when you go to hire an employee, you're giving them the you could do this yourself vibes, and probably also making them miserable working for you, which makes them want to go and do it themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. And
So-
that probably is a great point that you're making around, beyond attracting great employees, like, how do you keep them? And it is that measure of, you want your workplace to be somewhere where they want to stay. And how do you, as the employer, create that sort of culture, create that kind of environment, create that sort of camaraderie around the team, so that it is actually a really enjoyable place to work that they won't find anywhere else, and they certainly won't find if they're going to go back and work for themselves solo and not have anyone to work alongside.
Look, I have talked to numerous people that are into mindset coaching, and initially you go, oh, that's woo-woo, that's all just nonsense, it's just getting in your own head and trying to convince yourself that you're awesome. I would actually say what you're doing is mindset coaching. You're training people to think about this as a management situation rather than a self-employed person getting a helper and treating them like they're not really worth it.
Yeah.
So one of the things I do to help people start thinking about it as a management situation is go, all right, you've got a list of documents you need to have in place before you can employ somebody. And I haven't got these documents in place, right? So I'm failing on that. But the 3 documents I've got, and please add to this, that I think people should have in place so that they can then treat employees properly is an employee contract, an employee handbook, and a work health and safety policy. So 3 things. Now, you already mentioned a couple of other things that we can add to that in terms of workplace culture and, clear expectations. I think when you have an employee contract and handbook, you start to make those clear expectations written in front of you, and that helps you to set the culture.
It's always a great place to start because it at least gets you as a business owner to start thinking about, okay, like, what goes beyond just the tasks, like what are my expectations and why are they my expectations?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you can have work health and safety expectations that are unwritten, but if you have a work health and safety policy, like with those 3 documents, like I'm saying, but look at the work health and safety policy. It's one of those documents that allows you to go back to employees and say, I'm putting expectations on you and me. I'm putting expectations on me to provide you with a safe environment to work in. I'm putting expectations on you to be safe in that environment. So you can use that for carrot or stick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean by carrot or stick? So I can reward you or I can punish you.
Yeah.
Now, typically we don't want to start with the punishment. We want to start with the reward. Like, you're doing really well. It's good to see you're complying. You have a good, clear understanding of my expectations and your expectations as well in this situation. So it gives employees confidence.
Yep. And on the carrot and stick analogy as well, I think it's worth noting that not every employee or prospective employee just wants to chase the carrot. Like, employers will come into a business, and this could be like controversial to some people, but not everyone is just chasing a dollar. Like, a dollar will be part of their overall work experience and their desire to work.
Yep.
But it's not always the only thing. And I think a lot of business owners think that is the only lever they need to pull to attract good staff.
Yeah.
And it actually runs a lot deeper than that.
Yep. Yes, I agree. So that's why your coaching offers people good insights into this. So how you put together a job application, much easier if you've got those documents in place, those clear expectations that are transparent and 2 directions.
Yep. Yeah. And just realizing that, like, ultimately the business needs to serve your objectives as the business owner to help you reach your goals, whatever they are, big or small. But at the end of the day, like, if you want to employ people as part of your business plan and appreciate that they also have things that they want to achieve as well. Like, because of what they do for you, they're wanting to achieve their own life goals and their own personal goals as well. Like, I think it's really important to see that, like, the people that come and work for you and make that decision to come and work for you are not just doing it to make money and go home. Like, quite often there's some other things involved in that, of which we have an opportunity as business owners to do a much better job of, and as a result, like, attract and retain great staff.
Yeah. After inviting Sortscape in to share how their software can help your business, we created a link for you to be able to support Aussie Lawn Stars when you join. Sortscape will save you time and effort with scheduling, quoting and reporting so you can build a more efficient business. Visit sortscape.com/lawnstars now to join, and thank you for your support. So, Paul, we're going to do a hop, skip and a jump here, and I hope people follow that analogy very closely. So the hop is get your marketing right.
Yep.
The skip is get your employee strategy right. So have your documentation in place, all these things are mindset. Once you've started thinking about these things as a business rather than just an individual who started a low barrier to entry job for themselves, right? You've got a business. You've got to treat it like a business. Get serious. Do some marketing. Work out how to hire great employees. Have those documentations, bits and pieces in place so that all of that works well. The jump after you hop and you skip is scaling the business. So not everyone wants to do this. Right?
Yep.
You might just stop with marketing and go, that's got me as big as I want to be. You might go a bit further and go, all right, I want 2 or 3 employees. I don't want helper. I don't want a slave labour. I want real employees. Or you might go, no, I've got 1 employee, 2 employees. I'd like to scale and have 10 plus staff. Yep. What are some of the other things you're looking at there when you're coaching people and going, okay, you can't just have those 3 documents in place and a few employees?
Yeah. So when it comes to scaling a business, again, like I've mentioned it earlier on, having really clear goals on what you want to do with your business before you go and scale is the most important thing you can do. And it's really important to set those goals and to keep coming back to them and changing them as your business evolves and grows. Like, the worst thing you can do is like go to the effort of putting together a business plan and setting out some goals as to what you want your business to help you achieve in life, and then just put it on the shelf and go, yep, great, I've got my business plan, I've got my goal set, and then never go and review it. Like, because what that will do, like knowing what you want to do with your business and what goals you want to achieve via your business, whether or not that is, business driven or personal, like, work-life balance driven or like personal stuff driven. If you want to scale your business, you need to know why you're doing it first and foremost. And then that helps to keep you in line with all the other decisions and all the other challenges that come with scaling a business and beyond. And so, like, based on my own experience, like the stuff that I am having conversations with other business owners when it comes to scaling is part logistics, like looking at, okay, what do you actually need to be able to scale a business? What does that look like from a setup, like a physical setup point of view, utes, equipment, making decisions. Making decisions as to whether or not you want to have a warehouse that everyone comes to, or whether or not you want to send utes home with everyone so you don't have to have a warehouse, and where the challenges that comes with that. What sort of workload you want to take on. Are you wanting to scale a business with purely residential clients? Are you wanting to scale a business purely with commercial? Is it better to do a mix of that, and hedge your bets? And then super importantly, and that's lessons learned both naturally and the hard way, is to scale a business. Where does your business need to be financially, and where does it need to be from a profitability point of view? To be able to scale a business, to be able to grow a business beyond yourself, as we even touched on at the start of the podcast, like looking at within your own business, looking at, okay, like, have I optimized my business? Have I made my business as efficient and as profitable as I can at the current level that it is before I then go and decide to grow? Because I think quite often business owners, and I was guilty of this, particularly in the first few years of my business, I thought that scaling my business was actually going to solve my profitability problems. But I actually should have solved the profitability problem first before I scaled my business, because all I did was scaled up headaches and then added months, if not years, onto the back end of me playing catch up and actually getting the business back to being profitable, to what I could have had I sorted that stuff out to begin with.
You're scaring me there, Paul.
Why?
Well, most, and again, go back to the 3 different reasons people go into a lawn care gardening style business. Some are tradies, some are corporate background. Some are just going, I just want to buy myself a job. So the classic thing I hear when asking people, what are your goals? I want flexibility so that I can choose the hours that I work. I can spend more time with family. And they're great goals, right?
Yep.
But they are not goals to scale.
Yep.
So when you start talking about some of the goals that people will have when they want to scale their business, you mentioned profitability already, and we're going to jump into that a little bit more.
Yep.
But usually people struggle with that, and they don't have clear goals around what that looks like if they scale their business. It might be like, oh, I'd like to drive a Land Cruiser instead of a Hilux.
Yeah.
You know, $200,000 vehicle instead of a $30,000 vehicle.
Yep.
So I guess that is something which people need to actually start getting familiar with. It's one of those mindset games they need to play. If I scale my business, does that put me in a position to do different things, different goals? And you might naturally start doing this when you've put on an employee, but until you actually envisage these as goals, you get your mindset in line with being a business instead of just being self-important. Right? It's all good when you go, I want to prioritize family and do things like that. But when you start going, I'm actually helping other people in the community to have gainful, meaningful employment, and I'm giving back to the community in other ways. And I'm building profitability, I'm building a legacy and something that is potentially saleable. You start talking about different goals, and those are the goals that will lend towards scaling a business.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are the other ones you see?
As far as goals go that would affect the way in which you scale?
Yeah.
Or how to scale?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm a big one for doing things sustainably, particularly when it comes to yourself. And I see that the challenge at the moment is that we live in a world that loves to spruik hustle culture. Hustle, hustle, hustle. If you are not profitable, just hustle harder. If you are wanting to grow a huge business, hustle harder. If you want to be successful in life, hustle harder. And there's definitely times and places where you can hustle, and you should hustle, and you should maybe do more than 40 hours a week or 50 hours a week or 60 hours a week, but it should always come back to like what is actually sustainable for you. Like you can run a profitable business and put money in bank and work 80 hours a week if you want, but what else is going to be affected by that? Like what is going to come at the cost of you doing that? So if you don't have 80 hours of work that you can be doing a week, or you can put into, doing work and generating income a week, all right, how do you do more with less? How do you still get more profit but work, 40 hours or 50 hours or 60 hours or whatever that looks like? So I think like hustle culture is a big thing that I'm challenged by at the moment, and have a fair bit of conversation with clients around, in making sure that whatever they want to do in scaling a business is actually sustainable as well.
So I see with this the notion, I refer to brackets of business turnover, which equates to personal income at a level, right? But if you're talking running solo, you should be able to turn over $120,000 a year without much effort. So that should not be hustle culture. That should be just a fairly relaxed business that's not working too hard. $120,000 a year, totally achievable. And if you are doing that solo, where lifestyle, choosing the hours you work, spending more time with family, all those things are really important, you probably can get your income expenses, your business expenses, below 10%. Often it'll be over that, but you can get them really low. And that means that if your expenses are low and your turnover is $120,000, you've probably got $100,000 income, and that's not too bad. But other people that hustle a little bit harder will and comfortably do $200,000 a year turnover, chances are your expenses go up a little bit, but not always. So you can still run really low margins on that.
Yep.
You can be very comfortable. Once you get up around $250,000 to $300,000 turnover as a solo, no employees, chances are you're working yourself really hard.
Yeah,
and making good bank, but you're probably not getting those initial goals of reduced hours or choose your own hours. You've sort of become a slave to the clock at that point in time and a slave to the customer. So you're prostituting yourself out at some level. I guess the reason I would say that is because at any of those levels, when you're solo, if something goes wrong, your income goes from 100,000, 200,000, whatever it is, to zero immediately.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
and on that, like that's been a real eye opener for me in the discussions that I've been having with business owners. In that they go to their accountant, and their accountant looks at their financials and goes, "Oh, great, your business has got a gross profit margin of 10%." And in the accountant's eyes, 10% is like a good standard. You know, it's like a standard.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, your business isn't losing money. It's a good standard.
Yep.
But in reality, like a gross profit margin of 10% is like 4 to 8 weeks away from you having to shut your business, from you being away from a disaster. Like, because if you're making 150 grand, or your revenue is 150 grand, and you're making 10% like gross profit on that, that money's not going to go far. If you injure yourself, or you have some huge unexpected expense, you know, like your engine blows up in your ute and that sort of thing, like that profit margin is really not all that great. So like gross profit margin, on that, like I've becoming day after day an even stronger advocate for going like, all right, your gross profit margin needs to be far beyond 10%. Like 10% is now the new break even. Put it that way. And, you know, like you really want to be working hard to get beyond that.
So we're coming into some of the lessons you learnt the hard way, aren't we?
Oh, 100%.
And I've done this the hard way too. So if you look at Apple or Google or some of the larger businesses, and even go back to what you've achieved, like if you scale from $1 million turnover to $5 or $10 million turnover and you're sustaining 10% profit margin, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
Because a lot of businesses can't do that. Once you hit 10 employees, if you haven't gone bust at that point in time, you've worked out some of these issues. So profit margin, and we want to jump into things like cash flow, because if you don't get cash flow when you've got 10 employees, see you later.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a huge challenge for me. Like in the first half of running Mobros, was getting that cash flow right, getting those profit margins right. A couple of things that come to mind, like we're sort of like throwing around figures before of, you know, you should be able to, if you're working, you know, reasonably hard on your business as a solo operator, you should be able to do, you know, let's say $200,000. And if you look like back on the conversation we were having before, I was talking about that murky ground where businesses get into from a size perspective, that they then become like quite unprofitable, or they have to be really careful, is probably that size between like, say, 300,000 to 700,000 in revenue, like where I see businesses are really challenged from a cash flow perspective and a profit perspective. And I have walked that journey as well. Like that journey from, say, like 4 staff to 7 or 8 staff, that was super unprofitable. Well, it was break even for us, where it needed to be profitable so that we could actually fuel the growth to get out of that. And I found myself in this cycle of, well, I don't have enough money to put back into the business and break out of that quickly. And so we spent longer in that murky middle, that murky ground, than we should have. Maybe a couple of years longer than we should have.
Now, part of the burden there is trying to deal with growth, with management, and when you've got 3 to 5 employees, you got to start thinking about handing over some of your responsibilities to admin. or even just equipment maintenance, whatever it might be. You've got to hand over some responsibilities if you want to grow through that period.
Yep.
So if you want to go from 3 employees to 12 employees, you've got to be prepared to go, okay, I'm going to lose some of my profit margin because of this. And I spoke to Brendan Winterbourne, I think I got his name right, over in WA, about this issue. And he said that's the biggest hurdle for people that are in that scale size business, is that they fail when they try and grow because they haven't accounted for profit to be able to handle the administration side of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, like the delegation side of things is huge, like, because inevitably when things are not going well, if mistakes are being made, if clients are calling back and saying, hey, employee Joe, did a terrible job this time around, he's missed this, he's missed that, who's the first one to go back and fix it? Normally.
The business owner. You,
absolutely,
me.
Absolutely. And it's like, because it is a huge challenge, and I've been there. Like this huge challenge of like, you want to grow your business and you want to do more of what you love doing and do a good job of, but at the same time you don't want to let go of the responsibility, because you've grown up and you've grown the business to a point that has grown successfully because you have been the center point of the business. You have been everywhere. You have fixed the problems. You have talked to the clients. You have, you are the Mr. Fix-It in the business. And yeah, that is a huge point, is where you have to transition from Mr. Fix-It and Mr. Do-It-All to actually being able to like delegate that responsibility and give ownership to your employees and step back in those ways. Yeah.
So one of the key things I have stumbled across in this particular issue is an author called Mike McCallowitz. And his focus is, as his book is titled, Profit First. Yep. But he also has a book called The Pumpkin Plan. And these books go through some of the issues that you need to get your mind set on. So you need to focus on these things until that is the way your brain works. That's what mindset means. Until you wake up in the morning and go, all right, I need to know the numbers. How much money is the business making after it pays its expenses today? Yeah. How much is it making this week? How much is it making this month? How much is it making this quarter? Okay. Once you start knowing those things, knowing the profitability and the cash flow, so that you know that not just the profit margin, but you've actually got the money in the bank to pay the employees, to pay for the insurance, to pay for the fuel.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Profit First is a phenomenal book. Like we spoke about that earlier today. I wish I had read it 15 years ago, not 5 years ago. Like it has brought so much like clarity to me as to like where my perspective on like financials within the business was put on the wrong numbers. And you'd sort of, we talked about like maybe some of the lessons that I'd learnt like from Profit First, and I'll just sort of like, I can just give you like my top 5 that I sort of had been sitting on over the last few days and trying to distill them down to, as far as like number 1 is knowing that revenue, and profit are 2 very different things, and it can be very easy to chase revenue and chase the sexy number and try and generate a business that is operating and turning over $250,000 as a sole trader, or get to 7-figure business with a team under you and that sort of thing. And that's great, but if your expenses are 50% of that and you're actually not profitable, revenue counts for zip.
Correct.
That has been a big lesson for me. Like practically as well, like I don't know if you want to sort of touch a bit more on that. Like I know you've obviously had interviews with other people in Profit First as well, but it is just such like a super practical book, and really helps you to address stuff. And I would say, like, if you are considering scaling a business beyond yourself, that this is like a fantastic book to read before you do, or as soon as you can if you haven't already, to help you get the right structure in place so that you can scale your business.
Yeah, I agree, and I think we're sort of heading towards the end of our interview now, and one of the things that we come across, we've been touching on at the moment, is the various roadblocks you will encounter as a small business. So, cash flow and profitability. But some of the struggles you've faced personally, we talked about the emotional aspect of that when you went through COVID and trying to get on top of tax debt, things like that. It's not just a logical thing, it's also an emotional thing.
Hugely. And the challenge with being a small business owner that plays into like the emotional side of things is that journey can, like, as business owners have the ability, and I've done it too, to like take everything on solo, like the responsibility and the weight of the business rests purely on their shoulders. Like the success, they get to own the success, but they also own the failures as well. And yeah, that is a huge part of your business, and emotionally, yeah, that can be super debilitating.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think business owners are going to struggle with ups and downs along the way, right? But if you've struggled with depression in your life, then that's one of those things which you really do experience ups and downs, and it can be from one day to the next, or it can be something you sit there for 6 months struggling with. And if you don't know what's going on, often your brain will go to the worst place possible, and that's where depression tends to take over rather than living in reality. Reality can be harsh enough on its own, but if depression takes over, then all of a sudden all you see is the negatives. You don't get to see the positives or the actual feet on the ground making the difference.
Yeah, huge effect.
So, yeah, I look at those roadblocks to business and I go, yeah, there's some massive challenges there. Some of them I should talk to you about privately afterwards and just go, hey, what do you think I should do over the next 5 years, Paul? But I would throw one question to you, and let's just bury the hatchet with this one for 5-10 minutes, whatever it takes.
Sure.
You've been through all of those things. You've been through the valleys. You've been through the highs of doing all of this. If somebody comes to you now, or you're in a position now to start a business, what's 5 things you would say lay down these 5 things? These are have to know, have to do.
Yeah. Yeah, like I would look at that question through the lens of, okay, if I was to start, and obviously for a lot of listeners, it's probably the best way to do it, is to go, okay, like if I was going to step back into the lawn and garden maintenance game, like beyond just, the 2 days a week of clients that I've got at the moment, like if I was to step back in and make a real go of it again, like what would I do differently? That is probably like how I can best answer it.
Yeah.
And I suppose 5 things. Number 1 is, and this has probably been a common thread through today's chat, like
that's good.
Flipping, I want to know my numbers. I want to know my numbers like intimately. I want to not just know revenue. I want to know profit, and I want to know that more often than once every 12 months at the end of, having worked my guts out to then find out what that profit is. I want to look at that regularly and track it, and I want to look at where my expenses are. I want to look at where my money is going. I want to be on top of my pricing strategy. Like one thing that I wish I'd done early on, and I have the opportunity to help other businesses with this now, is to ensure that like when you're looking at setting your pricing and your pricing strategy and how you're bringing, additional profit into your business, don't just do like a set and forget thing every 12 months. Don't just go, okay, my pricing strategy is raising my prices by 5% or 10% every year,
Yep.
there's actually a great opportunity for you as a business owner to be really proactive about your pricing. And
Yep.
what that looks like, or what that can look like, is keeping track of the quotes that you are winning every time you win a job. And if you find that you are winning, 7, 8, 9, 10 jobs out of 10 that you're quoting, then that is an immediate green flag for you to raise your pricing. And not wait another 12 months to raise your prices for your existing clients or new clients. Go hard on being as profitable as you can, as quickly as you can. So,
Can I just say, with that one, the type of marketing you do is going to make a difference, right? So if it's all word of mouth, most people hinge off quoting low enough prices so that they get 80, 90, 100% of their quotes in successful, right?
Yep.
Once you start doing some targeted advertising, some paid advertising, then the actual numbers are going to change there. So you take that with the type of advertising you do as well, because ultimately, like you're saying, you want to be testing the market to see where your quotes are landing. Are people happy with them, or are they going, no, that's too expensive? So you need to start asking people that question. Get feedback from people. I've always asked people, where did you find my number? But how are you with the pricing? Is that where you expected it to be? Or is it higher than you expected? Is it lower than you expected?
Yeah, absolutely. So knowing all the numbers within my business is something that I, from day dot, would definitely want to do, and
awesome.
not spend 5 or 6 years trying to do that. The second thing would be, and this probably relates back to the marketing side of things, is knowing your market. Know who your ideal client is, and then you can then work out, all right, how do you then actually find that ideal client? How do you get in front of them? And what can you do in your marketing and in the things that you do within your business that will actually speak positively to those prospective clients? And also knowing, in the market, knowing your competitors as well. Knowing what can you do better than your competitors. What is going to be your point of difference? Why would people, other than price, and if you don't want to be competing on price, then you have to have something else that people are attracted to and people want to use your services for. So I think it's really important to know that. The third thing would be knowing your allies and bringing people into your business early on, and being really intentional about some of the relationships that you sort of need to be able to rely on. And that could be some of your competitors can actually become friends and allies within your business. They can be the stopgap. I have a friend, Andy B, who I've known for 15 years, the whole journey. I think you've even interviewed him.
Great guy.
The amount of times we pulled each other out of bad situations is countless. And on paper, we were competitors, serving the same industry, the same neighbourhoods, similar rates, same services, and yet we were able to benefit hugely from the relationship that we built over the years, because if he busted a trailer and he needed to be pulled off a 5-lane busy road, I was able to do that. If I'd managed to roll my stander down a steep embankment at a school's property and needed a 4-wheel drive to get me out, he was the man for the job. It's just, he wasn't a competitor. He's just such a friend and such an ally for my business over the years.
I've done the same.
Yeah.
And I think there's huge benefits there in making friends out of your competitors, but also other people in the industry. If you make friends with the mower shop, chances are they're going to be much more amenable to you coming in there at a moment's notice saying, hey, my whip's not working properly, can you fix it? Or my ride-on's just blowing the engine up, what do we do? Things like that make a massive difference. But also people that are on the fringes of your industry are really good to know. So you might go, I want to just do lawn mowing. I know a bunch of guys that can do hedge trimming or hand weeding. So when my clientele or prospective customers come and say, hey, I need this job done, I can either do a referral, which makes me look good, or I can do a subcontract and say, hey, Nick, I want you to do an excavator job for me.
Yeah. Absolute, like, swings and roundabouts, like, sort of, knowing people within the industry, and like you said, like on the fringes.
Yeah.
How much more time have we got, Gaz? Should I do two more?
Yeah,
Two
let's
more
do
if
this.
if I had my time again.
If we could go for 3 hours, people would love you.
I've got the time. I just don't know if people want to hear my voice for more than 20
The
minutes
complaint
at a time,
I get constantly, we've got nothing to listen to when your podcast finishes, Gaz. Give us more.
All right, we can. We'll do a behind the scenes or something like that. We're up to point number
Point four.
and that would be in knowing your downfalls as a human being / business owner.
Yep.
And this is probably particularly for people who want to scale up their business, but still applies to, like, just running as a solo operator.
Definitely.
Is that, like, and I wish I was humble enough from the start of my journey in business to know that I didn't have everything that it would take to run a successful business within myself. I use the analogy or the example of, like, when I grew up, like, playing NBA Jam on Super Nintendo was a thing, and maybe a more recent example is like FIFA on Xbox or something. But, like, when you're choosing your team and you're choosing your players, every player has their strengths and their weaknesses. And that is just so, like, true and valid in business as well. Is like every person has got great strengths in businesses and weaknesses. Strengths and weaknesses. And I wish that I was more proactive in addressing what my weaknesses were as a business owner. To be able to find ways to counteract that. So whether or not that was bringing someone, like, I sucked at admin, right? Like, I was good at bringing in the work and doing the work, but the back end was, like, messy to begin with.
Yeah.
So, like, bringing in someone who loved admin and loved ticking boxes and loved tidying up things so that they didn't get messy from an admin perspective, like, that is a great thing to be able to do. But then, and then, you know, like, if there's certain roles within your business or there's certain skill sets that you're not that great at, you know, you could be a gun on the mower, but you could be the world's worst hedger. If you want to scale up a business and you want to offer a full service, then you need to be looking for people who are going to, you know, complement your skill sets. And then that extends outside of that too. So, like, I utilised an accountant early on, and I imagine they will never listen to this podcast, so that's a good thing. But they were not the accountant that I needed. They were the accountant that I wanted because I could just check in with them, like I said, once every 12 months and submit all my paperwork and then go and do my own thing again. But what I really needed was an accountant who actually gave a crap and was willing to say, hey, look, here's some areas in your business that you can improve on, or, like, I've noticed this is happening. Like, you probably, you know, you really need to look at what you're doing and put yourself in a position where you're going to be more profitable earlier on. And so I really wish that I had put people in place in my business journey who were going to complement my downfalls, like my weaknesses. And then the fifth thing is, like, being acutely aware and knowing my responsibilities, not just as a business owner, but also, like, as a husband. Like, I was got married within a couple of years of having started the business. You know, my responsibilities as a father, like, a responsibility of whatever I'm doing in the community, like, that they all play in and they all have consequences that affect each other. Like, our business is not the only thing in our life. I don't really like that phrase like work-life balance, but to put it in broad definition, like work-life balance looks different for everyone, and that's because they have different responsibilities, and there's different consequences if they drop the ball with those responsibilities. So for me, I wish I had done a better job of setting boundaries earlier on around the amount of time that I spent working in the business, the amount of time that I spent working on the business, because they're two different things. Protecting time that I had with my wife, and I suppose I was very fortunate that COVID hit at the time that we had our first son, like our first child, Miles. So I was sort of like forced to be able to have more one-on-one time with him and more family time, which was really beautiful. It's probably one of the only beautiful things that came out of COVID for our business. But I'm grateful that I took that opportunity, because I know, like, in retrospect, I would never have got that time again. So I just wish in the early years of my business that I'd done a better job of, instead of like, it wasn't hustle culture, but it was working hard because I thought that was the responsibility that I had as a business owner, which it is, but there was consequences to that, and I needed to do a better job of weighing up what those consequences were from a relationship point of view and from everything else other than work point of view.
A friend of mine pointed that out to me when I started my business, and I said to him, what do you think about starting a lawn care business? And he had more of a business mind than I did at the time, and he said, it can be a good business to get into, but you've got to realise that the amount of hours you're going to put in is a lot more than just the hours you're pushing the lawnmower. And I was like, nah, she'll be right. Famous last words. And now I'm podcasting as well as doing the lawn care and gardening, and making more time to spend in front of the computer. But knowing your responsibilities in and out of the business, it's a challenging one. And I'd say a lot of people, when they start, they won't be able to get their head around what that actually looks like unless they start talking to people in the industry, or if they got a business coach like yourself. It's interesting, like, even just on that, like, inevitably I think people who start their own business, there has to be some level of pride. Like, it's like, I've started a business, I'm working for myself, I'm not having to work for the man. I get to call the shots, I get to make the decisions, I get to make the business whatever I want it to make. But probably like 9 times out of 10, that just turns into the business becomes all consuming, and then the business is making those decisions, not the business owner. It's easy for those lines to get blurred between you being in charge, and that's the goal, right? Like, you're going to business because you've got flexibility, you can choose to do different hours, right? But it very quickly becomes not you that's in charge, but the business runs you and the customer runs the business.
Absolutely. And even more so in a customer-centric, customer-facing business. It's an even bigger reality.
I joke around about us being prostitutes, but that's what we're doing. We're selling our time.
You can be a cheap prostitute or an expensive prostitute. Take your pick.
Well, you can also set boundaries and make sure that you're not. Absolutely. But that's certainly. It seems those lines get blurred in a service industry at times, where the customers will be like, "Oh, you're a handyman, right?"
Give us an example, Gary. I'll turn the tables. Give us an example of a job that you took on because you were like, it's not really in my wheelhouse, but I can make it work, and then almost immediately regretted.
Ooh, I'm pretty sure I've fixed somebody's toilet once.
That's good.
But
that's good.
The one I turned down was the phone call late at night, probably like 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, And I don't recognise the number. I'm stupid for answering it, but I answered it, and it was a woman. Do you do lawn mowing? And I'm like, yeah. Can you give me a quote? Do you do handyman work? And I'm like, depends what it is. And she goes, are you the guy that does other work? And I'm like, what do you mean? And she was very pointedly looking for a friend, not a friend in air quotes. And I was like, I'm married, see you later.
Wow. In 15 years, I'd never been propositioned like that. It seems like Leroy's getting propositioned multiple times a day. It was never my lot, that one. It was never my lot.
When you work solo, and I'm guessing your employees would all have stories like this too, but when you work solo, it seems like the elderly ladies love to just spend a bit more time with you, just to chat, not for anything extra, just to chat.
Yep.
But you come across all kinds of stories.
Oh, absolutely. And granted, I enjoyed that opportunity. There was not every day, and sometimes there wasn't time to, but that you do actually have the opportunity to do something for someone that goes beyond just the lawn mowing service that you provide. The necessity of lawn mowing. That it can be, that friendly check-in or that conversation that they don't get to have with anyone else. That was definitely a side perk of, serving some of the clients that we did.
And I think that comes down to one of those things you need to know when you're starting a business is know your boundaries. So you can literally say, yep, I've got 5 minutes, I can spend time chatting. And you can look at your watch so the customer knows and say, yeah, I've got 5 minutes, I've got to go in 5. Gives them time to have a quick chat, and then you can pull up stumps and say, I've got to go, see you later, even if they keep talking.
Yeah.
Paul, look, thanks for 2.5 hours of your time this afternoon.
It's a pleasure, man. And I can't believe it's been 2.5 hours, if I'm honest. It's flown. But, thank you for having me on, breaking my podcast virginity, you sly dog.
Yep.
And thank you for the opportunity to, I suppose, share my business journey, the good stuff and the ugly stuff, and everything in between. I appreciate, being able to share that with you.
Look, I've enjoyed talking to you and getting to know you a little bit before we did the interview as well. I want to give a bit of a shout out for people who might want to look you up. So you go by Paul McCasker Business Coach on Instagram, and you got a website if people want to look it up. Yeah.
So the website is just my name, paulmccasker.com. McCasker is spelled MCCASKER.
Yep.
And I think my Instagram handle is just Paul McCasker.
Okay.
The one that says, when you look for me in the search that says Paul McCasker Business Coach, that's the one. Yeah.
Now, I personally would vouch for you and say, hey, people who are looking for a business coach, Paul has a wealth of experience, 15 years, and many highs and lows in there, but the transparency gives me confidence to know that your coaching is going to be helping people because of your experience.
Yeah, thanks, Gaz. I appreciate that.
So not only what you've learnt in business, but also the degree you got before you started in business puts you in a great place. And I think that, you listed 5 things to know about starting a business. I'm going to say those 2 things you studied in business school make a wealth of difference to anybody who wants to be in business, whether you want to be solo or whether you want to scale your business. Knowing the management and the marketing side of a business is going to help you, and it could make or break you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, again, thanks for your time. It was awesome.
Thanks, Gaz. I genuinely appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for listening to Aussie Lawn Stars. Please remember to rate and review the show on the Apple Podcasts app, or the player you use. Exciting new shows are released every Monday. Make sure you follow or subscribe to hear the next episode.